Well, welcome to Philosophy Live. My name is Christine Lambie. I'm a student and a tutor in the School of Philosophy and Economic Science. Now, this is actually being recorded rather than a live broadcast, as we had some technical problems, unfortunately, last week. Anyway, today we're hearing about an unusual initiative in prisons. Prisons are a big problem here in the UK with overcrowding in jails, but I think really there is a much bigger problem with helping prisoners to really see a future after jail and, find some hope in this situation. So we have a guest this morning, Rob James, all the way over in New Zealand. Rob was a student and a tutor in the school in Wellington, New Zealand for many years. He's retired now from a busy corporate life and now spends time in prisons. So good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Christine, and thanks again for the invitation.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Okay, tell us something about how this initiative started, could you?
Yes, well, as you say, I was tutoring and a student in the School of Philosophy in Wellington for many years, and I just completed the foundation course there, which is on practical philosophy. And one of my students, who happened to be a clinical psychologist at one of the big prisons here, came up to me at the end of the course and said, hey, Rob, this is a great course. I really enjoyed it. But we really should have this into the prisons. And she said, we've got nothing like it. And then she kind of looked me directly in the eye and she said, would you tutor this in the prison? So that was about 5 or 6 years ago. And that's kind of how we started. Yeah.
What could you say? Yeah. Okay. So I've got an image here of what you visiting a prison. Let's just have a look at that. Maybe you could tell us, what was it like the first time you went into a prison to present philosophy? That image shows something very sort of forbidding. There's wire fences and a lot of do not do this, do not do that. What was it like?
Well, you probably had quite a safe distance there with from that photograph. But when you actually walk into the prison, it's quite scary. It's obviously, huge concrete blocks. There's lots of barbed wire and high fences around. And when I first went in, it's a scary place. And when I first went in, I have to say, I kind of felt like it was, with all these bars, it was like a zoo, like a zoo for humans. It's not very flattering, but that's kind of how it comes across. And I wondered, who on earth is going to be interested in practical philosophy in here? But it just shows you how wrong you can be, because we ran that first course just as it was from the School of Philosophy. And then we started to adapt it to suit the prison environment. And within a year, my wife kindly, put a little bit on her, but my wife kindly came in to help. And within that year, we were tutoring 7 groups a week of the men, and they were still asking for more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us, how does a typical philosophy session in prison work? I assume it's voluntary. People can actually elect to do it. They're not obliged to do it.
Yes, it's entirely voluntary. We put a poster in, and then the guys who are interested can apply to join. And corrections vet the people who are coming in. Now that we've formed the Freedom Philosophy Society, which is the volunteering organization, we've developed a very standardized approach that we know has worked, tried and tested. And so we have a maximum usually of 12 students or prisoners, and we have a tutor plus 2 assistants. So it's highly interactive. We have 6 sort of tailor-made courses on 6 sessions. So you get about 75 minutes on those. And this may sound a little strange, but how we work it in the prison is that we create what we call a sanctuary. So when they come in there to that sanctuary, it's a different part of the prison to their mind. It's kind of like stepping out of the prison, where they're treated equally. And we all have this kind of rule that we honor and respect each other. And then the session itself, we start with the karakia, which is like a Maori blessing, which they do. And then we would go from that into like a check-in, finger on the pulse of how the guys are feeling, what's happening in the unit. And then we'd gradually develop the topic. We'd have mindfulness, we might have a bit of yoga and stretch because they're cooked up in the cells. And we would get lots of good, heartfelt discussions and with a lot of humor as well. And the main focus on those sessions is to get over the us and them, especially in the first few sessions, so we get to a we and build up the trust. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you're calling your participants, you're calling them students, not prisoners. I really think that's important, actually. So tell us, there must be some moments that stand out. You must have one standout moment that really stays in your memory. Could you tell us one of those?
Yes, there's lots really, and all our tutors and assistants would be able to relate theirs as well. One very early one for me in the early part, when I was just starting off at Rimatuka, stood out. So if we kind of use our imagination here a little bit and just imagine going into that grey prison that I was talking about with those high fences and the barbed wire and the spotlights coming out of the sky. And I was alone at that stage going in to tutor 12 pretty big, burly, heavily tattooed convicts, if you like, as they were to me then. And my topic, in my hand, I had the material for my topic, philosophy and beauty, in that place. And I to be honest, I just thought was crossing my mind, what on earth am I doing here? Because I was apprehensive,
Of course.
and nearly turned around. But I went into that session and tried to let go of my concerns, and as I did that, everything changed, and it was just an awesome session. Now we're talking about philosophy and beauty, so it's not the kind of cosmetic beauty, if you like. Our conversation went to beauty of the senses. They were sharing some of that. We were talking about poetry, literature, inner qualities of beauty, the essence of the person. They're just special conversations, and it was really good because that was the first time really I started to see beyond the masks, beyond the label of prisoners, to see the people behind that. And it stayed with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it would, actually. I can feel the sort of power of that event. So what kind of response are you getting from participants? What are they saying about it? I know you sent me one response. Let me just read this. One person said, if I'd had this course 10 years ago, I wouldn't be here now, which is gratifying for you, but in a way it's tragic, isn't it? That that person didn't have the course or, this content years ago. But what response are you getting from participants?
Well, we do feedback forms at the end of every kind of verbal feedback every session, but written feedback at the end of every course. And it's really humbling in a way. It just really shows that, sometimes even the writing is a bit difficult for the guys, but a lot of them are quite intelligent and very switched on. And the feedback we get is just awesome feedback. And we share that with corrections. And they tell us that they're even, they're starting to notice changes in the behavior of the guys within the unit. And so that's, it's a real feel of endorsement to the program. Yeah.
That must be very rewarding for you, for the work that you're putting in, to feel that it's making a difference. So who is helping you with this? You mentioned your wife, Roberta. Who else is working with you on this?
Yeah, so Roberta's been essential support, really. She's been terrific. And so, and I think the team that we've kind of built up here, we have an awesome team. We have something like 40 volunteers in New Zealand now, and that's continuing to grow. The people that come in, you find that they're kind of like-minded and obviously a bit apprehensive when they first go into, some of them when they first go into the prison, but then they see what the difference that they can make, and really the volunteers now make it work. I'm so grateful to them because they're taking it wider, and in a way we have volunteers that are active in the prison. and volunteers that are maybe low-key roles or behind the scenes. But in some way or another, they're all reaching out to do their part and to help those who want to change, to help them on that path. Yeah. Yeah, so awesome people. I've met some great people, really great people through this venture. Yeah.
And what an amazing thing if you've got a culture going in prison for change, for, if the whole sort of culture changed, that would be so amazing. So that kind of brings me to the materials you're using. Now, I know you started with the School of Philosophy's introductory course, basically, and I'm just going to show this book, which I know has been very pivotal for you, from Dr. Paul Wood, or at least he's been pivotal. What else are you using? What materials?
Well, yes, we've used some of the gems from the School of Philosophy, and I'm very grateful to being able to do that. And we've tailored that a lot now, as I was mentioning, to suit the prison environment. And Paul is, former murderer, now almost an icon in New Zealand, awesome guy, and a real role model, a full of life role model for these guys, that they can change. But we have many other sources as well. One in particular is Dr. David Keane, who's been immensely helpful throughout the whole building of the Freedom Philosophy Society. He's written the book, The Art of Deliberate Success. And in fact, he's largely written the Course 4, which is about success, giving these guys a kind of direction to their lives, which we found was missing. And that's, if you like, a simplified form of that in Course 4, thanks to David. We've also, we've got kind of some international links as well. Professor Rob Coulter, who's in Wyoming prison, doing some stoicism academic type courses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so he's been great, and he's shared some of the stuff with us. There's an Aussie guy, Dr. Hubert Kuhlenberg, Resilience Project. Lots of people who've kind of come along and helped us. And one of the things we've found is, with all that material, with these guys in prison, you really need to build in the stories as well. So the little short stories, that help, I don't know, it brings in humor to an extent, but it also helps them understand the point. And they love the stories, Two Wolves and lots of others. Yeah. So it's been good, and we keep refining that material now. The 6 courses, we're finding that they work really well. Yeah.
Interesting with stories. I don't think anyone ever outgrows stories. It just changes the environment from a classroom to kind of sitting around the campfire, isn't it? It's just a complete change of atmosphere. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's kind of like the stories bring in that kind of universal effect. It's not so personal, but it allows us to see the point of it and share that, and then bring it into our own, into our own being, in our own time, in our own way. Yeah.
So you've gone from one prison, I think, to several prisons. How many people are you actually reaching? And are you addressing women's prisons as well, or is that planned further down the line?
Yes, well, I mean, we're aware of the post-COVID and the acute staff shortages here in New Zealand, which we be in more prisons for that. So patience and perseverance are probably 2 key words here. Currently, we have about 60 students across 3 prisons. So we're in Auckland and in Hawke's Bay. And we are very high on the list to go back into Rimutaka when that opens up again, which would be very soon, we would think. We don't have women's prisons just yet, but we've got 2 prisons that, again, we're high on the list, and we expect early next year to be into those. We would like really to be, and I think it's possible, to take these courses, practical philosophy, into all the major prisons in New Zealand. And that would be, if you like, my objective to do that. And indeed, we've even had inquiries from the UK as well, and from Melbourne. We're exploring that. So I guess maybe I'm a little biased, but I think these courses could go into most prisons anywhere, really. So, yeah.
That would be very exciting, wouldn't it? I think that's a wonderful initiative. Anyway, what from yourself, you've come to the end of a very successful, busy corporate career. What have you learned? What has this given you at this point in your life? No doubt a great deal of satisfaction and fulfillment, but what would you say about that?
Well, lots, really. I've learned lots, and I hope I'm still learning lots, because there's always more to learn in the prisons, and working with so many great people. It's brought really a heightened sense of purpose to my life and meaning, and it's brought a lot of joy and surprisingly energy and enthusiasm. So it's kind of like, and that's been brilliant. That's been really nice. And I've noticed that with other people as well that we're surrounded with. Probably I did try to think of some things, well, what have I learned from this journey? And some of it good, some perhaps not so good. Like, we have over 50% reoffending. That's 50% of people, at least, who will go out and commit more crimes and more victims. And so it certainly has got me wondering about whether our prisons, great staff in there, but whether our prison system is really meeting society's needs, when we've got that sort of thing. In some countries like Norway, they have less than 20% reoffending, and the whole focus is rehabilitation. So I think we've got a lot to learn there, a lot more to learn. Perhaps the other thing is that not everybody wants to change their lives, but a lot of the guys do. But I find in my experience, most don't know how. And so that's kind of where some of these courses really hit the mark, because they start to change the way people think. They start to change the outlook if they wanted to pick that up. And so it's kind of like a real help, a real support on their journey to improvement. So that would be a key bit for me. And when we share the teachings with the guys, we have to recognize where we are and be conscious of that. We're in a very, sometimes very intense security monitors, all of that sort of stuff. But these guys are people behind all that. Not all of them want to change, of course, and they're there for a reason, to protect society. But when we present our material, if we kind of try to meet the person in front of us rather than the label, if we can just let go of those judgments, there's a better chance that we can meet the real people. And that's when you connect with the course. And I suppose the other part of it was we don't judge them. They've been judged already.
Yeah.
And we don't get caught up if they don't take it on board, so be it. We do the best just to present it and let them decide. And then perhaps finally, Christine, at the beginning we were saying about, how do we help the guys inside find hope, and how do we find a better life for them after prison? And through, the 5 or 6 years that I've been doing this, I'm convinced now that for those who want to change, the practical philosophy that we deliver in there is a really big help for them to achieve that. So that's a lovely mission to be on,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Rob. We should close there, but I'm sure viewers will also, as well as myself, wish you well in this project, and I hope it goes fantastically successful, and good luck. It's just such a great project.
Thank you. And as I say, if anybody wants to contact us, we've got a website, and please feel free to do that if you want any further information. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Bye-bye.
So, what can I say? Here's how philosophy can help us today. Maybe see the real person, see beyond the label. If you've enjoyed this, please like it and share it. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and join us again on Fridays during the term at 8:30 a.m. UK. Thank you so much for watching.